All right. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about metabolic adaptation and reverse dieting. Alexa's in her prep for her show. And when we enter into fat loss phases, especially when we enter into aggressive fat loss phases for like a bodybuilding prep, for example, we expect certain systems in the body to downregulate and start functioning at a lower capacity. We get less food coming in, the metabolism quite literally downregulates. The metabolism kind of turns, it's used to getting a lot of food, a lot of fuel. It's kind of burning through it at a high rate during the off season, like where I'm at right now. I eat a lot of food right now. And as the body gets less food, it, if it kept burning fuel at that rate, we would wither away into nothing. We would die. So the metabolism is really intelligent. It actually down regulates, it adapts to the amount of food coming in to make the food that you're eating kind of like last a little longer, so to speak. So instead of, me being in off season right now, eating almost 5,000 calories a day, in my metabolism is kind of like a Ford F-350, giant truck, just ripping through fuel. Whereas Alexa's metabolism now, because she's down regulated a lot, she's in prep, and the same thing happens to me and everybody else. As you go into your fat loss phase and you lower your calories, your metabolism kind of turns from like a Ford F-350 into like a Toyota Prius. Like you could put 1,000 calories in your body and it's going to make them last for a long time. So I have a guide here that I want to run you through. I'm going to share my screen with y'all and we'll go through this. And if you guys have questions, drop them in the chat. I'll pull up the chat box and we can kind of talk through some of this stuff. So it's not. Where did that go? Here we are. All right. So fat loss, metabolic adaptation, and reverse dieting. All right. So first things first, let's dive into metabolic adaptation. That's kind of what I was just talking about. When we're in a fat loss phase, we expect our metabolism to downregulate, to slow down, for lack of better terms. So before we go into that fat loss phase, we have to ask ourselves, are we in a position to be able to enter into a calorie deficit? If you're eating 1,500 calories a day as a female, or if you're eating 2,000 calories a day as a male, we don't really have a lot of calories we can pull from. Like your body still has to have enough, quote unquote, money to pay the bills. We have to be able to support the internal functions of our body. Women have to be able to support their menstrual cycle. Men and women have to be able to support our body's ability to pump blood throughout our body, to digest our food, to have, quality sleep at night, to produce quality hormones. We need enough resources to be able to do all these things. We run into an issue when we push too low as far as our calories are concerned for too long. And you can think of that as if, like, imagine you were working a minimum wage job. You don't have the luxury of spending a lot of money on going out to dinner, on, an expensive place to live. You don't have the luxury for that. And your body's the same way. If you're giving your body minimum wage calories, you don't have the luxury to be taking any more away and putting that into a fat loss phase. So the questions to ask are, how many calories are you currently consuming? How much cardio are you currently doing? Basically, we're looking for like, how much energy are you expending throughout the day? Because if you're eating 2,000 calories a day, but you're expending 3,000 calories a day in cardio, you're already in a fat loss phase. I don't know what to tell you, How much stress is currently on your plate and how well are you managing it? This is something that I ask all of my athletes before we go into a fat loss phase or a prep. I've had coaches that basically tell me when I'm going to prep, and that never really sat well with me because you don't know my life. You don't know what I got going on. What if I have a really stressful time of year? That's not a good time for me to be in a fat loss phase. That's not a good time for me to be in a bodybuilding prep. So especially to my athletes that have kids, we want to consider your schedule, your kids' schedule, and how much is going to be on your plate. Is this a busy time of year for work for you? Is this when, you have a lot going on with your kids. Like we need to understand how much stress is on our plate. And the stress is not just the feeling of stress. It's not just, you know, a hard day at work or getting in an argument with your partner or, you know, just sitting in traffic or what?
Forgetting to buy steak.
Or forgetting to buy steak at the grocery store. Like Alexa forgot to get steak at the grocery store, so I'm going to go get steak for her later. But stress also includes poor sleep, poor digestion, poor mental health, excessive cardio, extreme calorie restriction. So if you are, even if you had like pretty minimal perceived stress, like work's pretty easy, you know, you don't have a lot going on at home, but if you're like, if your mental health is really suffering, and if you're not sleeping well, and if your digestion is horrible, a lot of the times those three things go together, it's probably not a good time to restrict calories even further and go into a fat loss phase. You know, like we need all of these things to be in good working order. And these are important questions to ask because your body doesn't care about your body composition. Your body doesn't care about how you look or anything like that. All it cares about is survival, which is why it adapts. It adapts and adapts and adapts constantly to keep you alive. So what does that mean? It means that, like we talked about in the beginning of this call, as you enter into a calorie deficit, you want to go into a fat loss phase, so you pull your calories down. Your metabolism will downregulate. You got to remember that your metabolism is the same metabolism that we had when we were hunter-gatherers. You know, we're the same humans, physiologically speaking, as we were when we were hunter-gatherers. When we were hunter-gatherers, we didn't have the luxury of saying, I'm going to eat less food because I want to work on my body. Or like, I want to eat more food because I want to build some muscle. No, we didn't have that luxury. We ate what we were animals. We ate what we could eat when it was available. Now we have the same metabolism, but it doesn't know there's a McDonald's on every street. It doesn't know that there's a grocery store around the corner or that you have all this food in your fridge. It doesn't know any of that. So if it thinks, or if it gets feedback that you're eating less food, it doesn't know it's on purpose. It thinks there's less food available. So your metabolism downregulates because it doesn't want you to die, and it wants to make that food that you do have available last a little bit longer. It makes sense when you think about it. We have the same metabolism that we did back in our hunter-gatherer days. So here's the cool thing. I think about this all the time because I'm a nerd, but we understand enough about the human body to be able to control it in certain ways. Like we know that the metabolism will downregulate during your fat loss phase, which is super cool because now we know if it can downregulate, it can also upregulate. So if during your fat loss phase, we give you 1 to 2 weeks of slightly increased calories, just a little bit above maintenance, your body will say, your hunter-gatherer metabolism body will say, oh, I guess there's some food around. Like we don't have to downregulate. You know, we can keep moving this food along. We can still maintain this Ford F-350 metabolism, which is what we want, because that's how we burn fat. We want the Ford F-350 metabolism. I drive a 1500, so this is a soft spot for me. But men in our trucks, dude. But diet breaks can interrupt the downregulation and cause the metabolism to say, oh, there's a little bit more food coming in. Like we don't have to downregulate quite as much. Like I think we're good. We can use diet breaks. We can use refeeds. We can cycle calories throughout the week to trick the metabolism. Back in our hunter-gatherer days, if we didn't have a lot of food available, we weren't eating more some days and less other days. We were consistently rationing our food less and less and less and less and less. So we trick the metabolism with calorie cycling. We have high days, we have low days, and that keeps the metabolism upregulated. So stupid metabolism. We know enough about the human body to get it to do what we want it to do, which is super cool to me. Now, the metabolism down regulating with a lower caloric intake, like we said, it's important because it means you won't wither away to death, right? Like your metabolism wants to keep you alive. But at the same time, if that metabolism is down regulating, it makes fat loss more challenging because we have to work with it. So that's the whole point of learning this, of learning how the metabolism works, learning how we can use diet breaks, refeeds, calorie cycling to slow down the rate at which the metabolism is down regulating and kind of get it to like, like take a little bit more of a longer time to down regulate. That's the biggest opportunity we have. Now, the really cool part, and I think for a long time, the diet industry missed this. If your metabolism can downregulate, it can also upregulate, right? Like we have control of these things both ways. So as an example, right now, I'm eating close to 5,000 calories a day, and I'm gaining weight like very, very, very slowly. But in my bodybuilding prep, there was a point where I was eating close to 1,000 calories a day. If I went from eating 1,000 calories a day to 5,000 calories a day, I would gain weight like crazy. But this is the reverse dieting part. This is how you lose fat during your fat loss phase, and then you stay lean and you keep those fat loss results, is with reverse dieting. I think we've all done this, or we know people who have gone through a fat loss phase or done a diet and they lose like 10 or 20 pounds and then they stop the diet and they gain it all back. Sometimes they gain even more weight back. It's like they lose 20 pounds and they're all excited and then they stop their diet and they gain like 30 pounds back. It's like, and they're like, well, the diet worked. It's like, no, the diet might have worked, but you didn't do the exit strategy. You didn't reverse diet back out. So sometimes when I get passionate, my accent comes out. Oh my God. Wait till I have a drink. The diet. The diet. So for the reverse diet, all we have to do is we have to regain control over your metabolism and we can get it to operate how we want to. So let me see if we can see this graphic. You know what? Not even this graphic. I'm going to play this. All right, here's a real quick and simple. I hope you guys, I'm going to put it on full screen. Can you guys see this right now? The YouTube video? Anybody? You can? Okay, cool. I had the screen share to like one tab and I just wanted to make sure it was. I'm going to turn the volume up because I want to make sure you guys can hear it. I think this is probably one of the easiest ways to understand that I've done to understand fat loss, reverse dieting, and metabolic adaptation. So it's a 2.5-minute video. I'm just gonna let it play. All right, here's a real quick and simple explanation of how metabolic adaptation works. All right, so up here we have your calories, your metabolic rate, and your time. Now, calories, I'm going to use a straight line. Metabolic rate, I'm going to use a dotted line, okay? Now, if you start eating 2,000 calories a day, like a normal person, and you decide that you want to drop your calories to 1,500 drastically, like that. Now you're eating 1,500 calories a day. You're going to start losing weight at first, but it's going to slow down and your weight loss is going to slow or stall. Why? Because your metabolism doesn't want you to die, and that's cool. But what that means is that your metabolism, which was once running at a maintenance of 2,000 calories a day, is going to slowly down-regulate to catch up and only run at 1,500 calories a day, again, because it doesn't want you to die. So it doesn't care about your fat loss. So when this happens and progress slows or stalls, you have a couple options. You can either move more, eat less, create a calorie deficit, or reverse diet back out. Now, if you decide to eat less, I'm not saying do this, please don't do this, but if you were going to say you're going to eat 1,000 calories a day and then continue over time, the same thing is going to happen. Now, in these areas, you're losing weight, and that's cool. But what's not cool is only eating 1,000 calories a day. So eventually, you're going to get to a bottom of your fat loss where it's slowed, stalled, you're not eating food, and you're not healthy. So your metabolism has down-regulated to operate at 1,000 calories a day. You can't really create more of a deficit from that. So that's why you're not losing weight. And your body is too stressed to lose weight in the first place because fat loss is a luxury. So what do you have to do? If your metabolism can downregulate, it can upregulate. So instead of drastic changes in food, what we do is we make very slow and steady changes in food that about match the increase in metabolic rate so that you can continue to eat more food without gaining weight and you can maintain all the progress that you've made from your fat loss phase until eventually you're back at 2,000 calories a day and you can earn yourself another fat loss phase. Now, remember, these numbers are completely made up and arbitrary. Completely made up. So let me go back to this one now. Did that make sense to you guys? If we make big changes in the amount of food you're eating, either increasing or decreasing the amount of food you're eating, we'll see a change in your body weight and your body fat. So during your fat loss phases, we make big drops to your calorie to create a calorie deficit. You lose fat. Your metabolism will catch up to that. But when we're reverse dieting back out, we make really small, slow, steady increases to your food so that your metabolism increases, but your body fat doesn't. That's the goal of reverse dieting. And that's what most people miss. And that's why people go through a fat loss phase and then they gain all the weight back on the other end, is because they're missing the exit strategy. They're missing the reverse diet. On top of that, especially for competitors or people who get really, really, really lean, the leaner you get, the more this applies. But when you're coming out of a really deep fat loss phase, like when you're coming out of a bodybuilding prep, the beginning of that reverse diet, your body is starving for nutrients. Like it wants nutrients so badly, and it's able to utilize them really, really well. You're super insulin sensitive. Your body is able to uptake glucose at an incredible rate. And so you see really good muscle gains coming out of the reverse diet. So it's a win-win when you reverse diet properly. You maintain body composition, you keep your fat loss progress, but you increase your muscle. So that's why it's a crucial strategy. Now, we've talked about why we need reverse dieting. We increase our metabolic rate. We restore healthy bodily function after fat loss phases and bodybuilding preps. It helps us prepare for fat loss phases. So sometimes we get athletes that come to us and, you're not eating enough food to be able to go into a fat loss phase. So we need to reverse diet you back out so that you are eating enough food and we get all of these positive benefits. We improve quality of life. Some people just want to eat more, like some people just don't want to only eat 2,000 calories a day. Personally, I like the luxury. I don't love eating as much food as I'm eating right now, but I like the luxury of being able to go out and have a burger and not have it throw off my entire calories, Um, and then, yeah, some people are only eating 1,200 calories a day, and that's like toddlers eat that much. In fact, I don't think there's a salad at Cheesecake Factory that's less than 1,200 calories a day, which is pretty crazy. All right. Now, here's the final piece is how do we reverse diet? Now, if you're working with us, we do it for you. And we monitor all of your variables so that we can reverse diet you as quickly, but also as effectively as possible. So the reverse diet itself is very highly individualized. Increases in calories and macros are based on things like, increases in calories and macros. If somebody had a question, if you can pop it in the chat, I'll get to you. Increases in calories and macros are based on things like the duration of your diet, the severity of your diet. Like after Alexa's bodybuilding prep, that's a steep fat loss phase. So she's going to need a bigger increase on the way out because her body needs resources. The state of your internal health and your hormone profile, your activity levels, individual response to dietary changes, things like that. So I remember Lane Norton. I don't know if you follow Lane Norton, very intelligent human. He's BioLane on Instagram, came out with a reverse dieting guide. And the rule of thumb is basically increase your carbs by 10 grams every 2 weeks. which is 40 calories every 2 weeks, which to me feels like watching paint dry. I don't know about you guys, like 40 calories every 2 weeks. That's like 7 goldfish, you know? So we've had athletes, especially like bodybuilding competitors and even lifestyle athletes. I mean, shoot, I've had lifestyle athletes that have that have reverse dieted with 1,000 calories in 4 weeks. So having a coach to manage your reverse diet for you can make it go a lot faster and be a lot more successful. So, of course, we follow our framework. We assess your current caloric intake. We identify your goals. We determine how aggressive an approach we need in order to achieve them. Do you want to build muscle? Do you want to maintain body composition? Do you want to do both if it's possible? Additionally, we take note of your current biofeedback: sleep, hunger, recovery, energy, digestion, stress, and your lab work. We identify any poor areas or the cracks in the foundation. We focus on improving them in step 2 below, which is, as you guys know, the priming phase, where we establish the habits, the routines, the mindset, and the protocols to improve the poor areas, to fill the cracks in the foundation that we found during your assessment phase. This is crucial because the body only responds when it's healthy. So if we try to reverse diet you, but we don't address your sleep, we don't address your digestion, we don't address your poor lab work, we don't address any of those things, you're going to gain a lot more body fat. And it's not going to go well. You're not going to be happy with the results. So sometimes we do take a step back to take many more steps forward. And I don't ever want you guys to feel like, oh, I'm going backwards. You're not going backwards. Before you pull an arrow, before you shoot an arrow, you have to pull it back. That's exactly what this is like. We take a step back, just like when you pull an arrow back, and we move forward a lot faster and better than we ever would before. So if you've not been following a consistent diet, use this time to establish some consistency. And of course, talk to your coach and we'll create a plan for you. Now, as far as the reverse diet itself, I have 3 approaches here: conservative, moderate, and aggressive. A conservative approach would be a slow increase in calories aiming for less than or equal to 0.2% of your body weight gained per week. This is great for if you went into a fat loss phase and you didn't quite lose all the fat that you wanted to lose. You know, if you have a little bit excess body fat, if you're a lifestyle client, you know, you've reached a goal weight, hormones are good, but you have a little bit of excess body fat and maybe you haven't reached your goal weight, this is the conservative approach. And this might look like 10 grams of carbs every 2 weeks. It's that 40 calories approach. If you work with us as your coach, we might be able to make that move a little bit faster depending on the rest of your biofeedback. So that would be a conservative approach. A moderate approach would be a moderate increase in calories, aiming for less than or equal to 0.5% of body weight gained per week. So this is ideal for individuals who need to gain body weight, who need to increase calories a little bit quicker. And you're probably going to see a little bit more body fat gain, which if you got really, really, really lean, sometimes you might need. Okay. What we don't want is to maintain unhealthy levels of body fat for too long. I did that when I first started my fitness journey. I stayed at like probably 6-ish% body fat, maybe 7 for the majority of like a summer. And then in probably the spring and summer. And I royally screwed up my hormones. So we need a certain amount of body fat to be healthy. Being stage lean as a bodybuilder, not healthy. That's why we only do it for a short period of time. So this moderate approach might look like increasing calories by 2 to 3% weekly, which depending on your caloric intake, it could look something like 10 grams of carbs and 2 grams of fat every 2 weeks. But 2 to 3% of your total calories each week. And those total calories that we're increasing from, by the way, they come from mostly carbs, a little bit of fat. Okay. We will still want to keep our macro ratios in check. Lastly, an aggressive reverse diet strategy. This would be an aggressive increase in calories, aiming for equal to less than or equal to 0.8% of your body weight gained per week. So the goal here this is like what Alexa's going to do after her show. The goal here is to quickly restore health and metabolism. Oftentimes we start off much more aggressive and then we taper off our increases to more moderate. So in the example of after a contest prep, this may look like increasing calories as much as 5 or 10% every 2 weeks, and then monitoring and modifying increases as necessary. I would almost call this, rather than like a reverse diet, I might even call it like a recovery diet, because we need to gain body fat to be healthy, but we want to do it while maintaining a healthy body composition. We need to restore health and hormones. And so we need to get the resources in order to be able to do that. So that's what this one would be for. Most of us as lifestyle athletes are going to fall into the conservative or moderate, unless you get really, really lean, or if you're a bodybuilder, after your competition, you will have a more aggressive approach. Cool. So that is to the transformation. So that is metabolic adaptation and reverse dieting. I hope that made this whole process a little bit easier to understand. I think the better we understand things, the better we tend to adhere to our protocols when we understand like why we're doing things. But I know that this can be a complex topic. So does anybody have any questions?
Why are you so damn cute?
Cool. I guess that means I did a pretty good job. Well, if you guys want this guide, I will drop a link to it in the group chat. I believe there's a section at the end. This is like a guide that we made as almost like a lead magnet, to pass out to people and encourage them to reach out and ask for help. So there is a little section at the end about wanting to work with us or inquiring about that. Obviously you guys are all with us, so we can kind of ignore that part, but it's a good guide that I enjoyed making, and Alexa made it really pretty for us. So I will drop that in the group chat, and then I will also, because this didn't stream live to Facebook, I think what I'll do is I'll upload this to YouTube and I'll drop the link to it in the group chat as well for anybody who wants to rewatch it. All right. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, y'all. I appreciate you guys. And for those of you who are here in Austin or coming to Austin, Daniel, Drea, Kate, Ryan, you're here. We'll see you this weekend for the team meetup. Hell yeah. All right. I'm going to get to finishing this meal, which is cold now. Cool thing about cold. Now I'm just being a nerd and going on random tangents. Rice, quinoa, and potato. If you cook it and then immediately eat it, it has a different structure and response inside your body than if you let it cool. If you let it cool, it turns into what's called a resistant starch, and it actually has better impacts on blood glucose management. Pretty neat. So that's your Snapple fact for the day. All right. I love you guys. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see some of you this weekend, and I'll see the rest of y'all next week.